All right. We'll go ahead and get started as people are rolling in. Maybe. Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, you got a few extra oh, okay. Hey, buddy. Okay, so we are going to pick up where we left off last week. This is part 3 of our case study. And this week, we're going to explore what it looks like to wrestle with forgiveness, but have a heart that is more like the soil that is good soil, but it has some thorns in it. From Jesus' parable. Thorns in it. Parable of the sower. Everybody's following? Trekking? Good? Okay. All right. Everybody got a copy? Does anybody need a copy? I have a few. Copy? Do you need a copy? Give him a copy. There you go. You need a copy? Catch. Everybody good? Good. Okay. Part 3. So, remember, this is a case study based on a fictional story. Someone who's wrestling with forgiveness. Anybody relate? Yeah, right. Forgiveness, it's a struggle. And as we talked about last week, one of the things that we struggle with forgiveness is recognizing the fact that the feelings that come with forgiveness oftentimes show up after forgiveness is actually accomplished in us. Okay? A lot of times we struggle with the reality of forgiving people or feeling like we haven't because we don't feel the feels that come with forgiveness. Anybody relate to that? You know what it's like to feel like you've forgiven someone? We're looking for that feeling, right? And we don't have that. That's part of the reason why we wrestle with it. Last week we talked about a couple of things here, and I just want to remind you that as we talked about it, forgiveness is a choice that can be embodied in small acts, right? As we go through the process of getting ourselves in a place where we're actually releasing it, it can be embodied in small acts before it transforms our feelings. Okay, so the process of wrestling with it, okay, is a healing process. How do you thwart that healing process? Thwart it. How do you hinder it? How do you keep it from progressing? How do you stall it? Yeah, ignoring it, putting it off, not even by trying to escape from it, act like it doesn't exist, act like it's not a thing, right? Okay? And also the other thing is this, when we talk about forgiveness, and part of the reason why I think we struggle with it sometimes is because of the way we talk about it, okay? I think sometimes we talk about it, we use such strong language and not really expressing the nuances that go on here, that we come away thinking that it's a one and done. And oftentimes, that's not the way it works. Okay? It's not the way it works. So, expect setbacks. It's part of the process. Okay? But these are opportunities, I think, for a deeper reliance on God, okay, and God's grace, constantly reminding us of where we stand in God's presence, how God sees us, and I think that is helpful, okay? Especially in recognizing the place and how we should see others. But it is a process. The mind doesn't change overnight most of the time. And even when it seems like it does, there was a process happening that we weren't aware of. Okay? Does that make sense? That make sense? Okay. So it is a process that we engage in. All right. Let's look at this. Part 3, growth slow. So Jacob has made some progress, and here's where we find ourselves. And this is, I think, hopefully relatable. I think it's so relatable to all of us, especially this time of year and how busy things really seem to get. You think you're busy the whole year, and then it just somehow ramps up even more, right? It's like, how does that work? How does that happen? All right, so Jacob has made some progress in forgiving those who hurt him, but he enters into a busy season of life. That's an easy distraction right there, right? He is overwhelmed and stressed, and old patterns start to resurface. So a couple of examples here. Work pressures, parenting demands. Anybody? Daily responsibilities, crowd out time for reflection and prayer and journaling. Have you ever experienced that? Where have you ever tried to establish some sort of rhythm? Whether, for me, it's always in the morning, but whatever time. And it's going well, and then before you know it, you look up and it's been a little while, right? And you didn't notice it and give it any attention, but yeah, it's been a little bit, and then all of a sudden, you start kind of falling back into old ways. You ever? Anybody? Yeah. Memories of past hurts surface unexpectedly. Have you ever been sitting there, like, man, I've ever been just going through something? It could be in worship. It could be in a class. It could be in a conversation with someone. It could be watching TV, commercial, be anything. Driving down the road, and then all of a sudden in your mind pops up this thing that happened. Come out of nowhere. Anybody? It's like, wait a minute, what? Why? What? So many times I can remember, especially as a kid, growing up in church, and I'm in tune, engaged, and all of a sudden this other thing would come up about, I don't know, some cartoon I watched or what. Anyways, anybody, right? So especially if you have kids and you're watching stuff with, anyways. So memories of past hurt surface unexpectedly, but he quickly distracts himself with tasks, scrolling his phone or overworking. His body carries tension. Man, let's go back real quick. An exercise for everybody to do. I think it's so funny. You get in traffic? There's traffic around here everywhere, right? Especially, take notice of when next time you get to a red light and you're stopped in traffic. When everybody slows down, look around. See how many people immediately go to their phones. Or when you're driving, and someone starts coming over in your lane, you're like, what's going on? And they're over here on their phone. Yeah. Such an easy distraction, right? And we do it and don't even realize that we're doing it. How crazy is that? Yeah. Why do we do that? Why do we create things to do? Why do we do that? Okay. Sometimes we're trying to deflect.
Hard for some people to be alone by themselves.
Okay. Yeah. Anybody else?
Being busy is a good excuse not to do something else.
Okay. It's a good excuse. Anybody else? Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. To avoid things. I'm looking for something specific. And you've all said it, you all hinted at it. This is the closest one here, to avoid things. Avoid what? I think sometimes we like the way it feels to be busy because we feel productive. We feel like we're accomplishing things, right? But what we're trying to do sometimes is escape the feeling of whatever it is over here that we really need to deal with. I think sometimes we just like the way it feels to be busy. Okay? All right, so see, feelings are so integrated. It's harmful to ignore them, but it's harmful to also only focus on them. But they are an intricate part of who we are, and they're indicators, and so pay attention to them. Okay, so he starts doing all these things to distract himself. His body carries tension, tight shoulders, clenched jaw, whenever he thinks about forgiving people like Karen, who was mentioned earlier in his story, or his family members. Anybody? You ever come back home from the end of the day, or from a conversation, or from doing something, and you sit down and you realize how tense you are, your jaw's clenching, your teeth hurt? Anybody? Like, what is going on here, right? Like, shoulders are up like this and you don't realize, right? The body keeps the score. His body carries tension. Emotionally, he notices frustration, irritation, and mental replaying of injustices, but he avoids processing them, leaving resentment to linger silently. Anybody relate? You feel that? Yeah.
My father-in-law, he always say, but he said it a few times, wherever you are, there you are.
Mm-hmm.
The reason he say that, when you talk about it, is I always felt like, he was a pastor himself. When he said to me, so then, I always used to believe that if I could just go over here instead of being here, I'd be okay, or if I could just get this position or this money.
Yeah.
There's one thing that was always going to fix everything.
Mm-hmm.
And my father-in-law would always tell me that it wasn't about all these other little things, because wherever I go, I was always going to take whatever.
Yeah.
And that was the real problem. It wasn't really what was going on around me, what I wasn't getting, what I think I needed. It was more so
Mm.
in here.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it generated that thought.
Yeah. That's good. Where you are, there you are, right? I like that. Yeah, you carry it with you. We carry so many things with us, we don't even realize it, right? You can run really deep. Yeah. I had someone years ago tell me, it was interesting because he was an engineer. Any engineers in here? But he was also a licensed counselor. Those two things don't normally go together, do they?
In a way they do. Because they compartmentalize. They
You're right.
I mean, I can see that.
Yeah. It worked. Like, logically, it's like, but it worked. He told me that, especially in business of helping people and walking with people, that oftentimes when people lash out, when they have unhealthy reactions or whatever it is that you're dealing with, oftentimes that first touch, what you're experiencing is just what's surfaced because of other things that are going on in their life, right? And this just happens to be the outlet. You carry it with you. You take it with you. You ever come home, or maybe your spouse, or a friend, or I don't know, just engagement, and all of a sudden there's just anger and frustration, and it's like, whoa, going on here? Maybe you have been the one. Spiritually, he knows God is calling him to release these burdens, but his desire to forgive is choked by distraction, worry, and preoccupation with daily life. So, the good seed of forgiveness obviously has been planted, right? But worries, anxieties, and busyness are strangling its growth. There's their thorns. You guys see that? He wants to forgive. Does anybody not? Well, sometimes we are in a place where we don't want to forgive. But you can get to a place where you're like, okay, have you ever gotten to that place where you're like, I want to let this go. I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to be reacting this way, but I can't figure it out. You ever get to that place where you want to? And people are just like, well, just do it. And you're like, I'm about to just do something, right? Jokingly, of course. Right? You ever felt like that way? Like, I've seen it so much in the realm of people who struggle with addictions or just, unhealthy ways of living. And, they'll have people who don't understand, like, just stop. Just stop. And they're like, I want to, but I can't. I don't know how. That is a reality. Jacob wants to forgive, but he doesn't create space to nurture it. There's where the tension lies. Right? There's where the tension lies. So, resentment persists. Let's look at, I hope, let me pause real quick. I hope that you see this. When it comes to forgiving other people, I think that it's helpful, at least for me, to remember that so much of what needs to be released is not just simply for the good of the other person, but so much of it has to do with what's good for me, what's healthy for me. I need to be able to let this go. I need to be able to release this, right? Because it's holding me back, keeping me from becoming the person that God has called me to be, become like Jesus, right? All right, Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 7. Somebody read that for us. Okay. So cast your concerns, your anxieties, the things you're worried about, the things that are just overwhelmingly controlling you, if it were, as it were. And then as a result, it says what? Peace will guard your heart. Okay. How can these passages be helpful in this scenario? Okay? Okay? Give it to God. You can't carry it alone. What else? Yes.
Well, Heather and I were talking the other day, and I was just telling her that I was grateful for my own problems. Sometimes I can look out there and I see what other people are having to deal with, and I reflect on that and realize, my problems are not so big, but the ones that I have are the ones that I've been given. That place. We have the opportunity to move through that situation. So if I can forgive, my crazy wife, my dad, or Karen, or whoever it is in the story, maybe that becomes part of what, the trials that I've gone through, the patience that I've been able to gain so that I can share that.
Yeah. So sometimes it's helpful, right? I've heard Ken say this a couple times. Sometimes it's helpful to stop and ask, okay, what is the Lord showing me here? What is the Lord trying to teach me here, right? And part of, if I can piggyback off of what Alton just said here, part of what I think these scriptures help to bring to our mind is that we could deal with all of these things and now dealing with them is actually a relational practice. It's a relational practice between us and who? Not just the other, but us and who? God, because we bring these things in the presence of God. And when we do that, oftentimes, I think that we end up coming into this place where we can realize actually where we stand, and it doesn't make our issues any less important or whatever for us or weighty for us, but it does help us give us perspective, right? Yeah, that's good. What else? What else? How are these helpful? All of these things, worrisomes, the worries. This particular passage talks about worrisome concerns, these anxieties and things like that. But you look at all of the things, the thorns that could be in the soil, right? These are competing voices, aren't they? You guys hear my stomach? It's growling. That's that low. Man, what in the world? Worrisome concerns, right? They're competing voices. But one of the things that I think this passage helps us see is that we can become aware of them. Right? And there's an appropriate way of dealing with them. And that the way that it's mentioned here is by engaging in this, again, relational practice with bringing them into the presence of God and saying, here they are. Like, here it is. And being honest. I think you can't read the Psalms without coming out feeling empowered to say, this is how I feel. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Because guess what? God already knows. He's not interested in our sugarcoating. Right? He's interested in an authentic relationship. That's where that stands, right? What else? Okay. Yeah. Right? Right? If you want to know what you really believe, look at what you do, right? Yeah, so we're given an answer here. We're given a process. We're given like the solution, as it were, right? Here's how you, when you're wrestling with this, how you wrestle with these things. And the question is, do we actually entrust ourselves to the reality that by doing so, what's going to guard our hearts? Scripture right here says what? And what do you get from them? Peace, right? But here's the thing about peace. Peace isn't the absence of thorns, is it? Yeah. It's the ability to cope and navigate, right? Peace isn't the absence of thorns, it's a guard, right? That keeps them from doing what to our hearts? Yeah. Piercing, overwhelming, choking out, okay? So peace guards the heart. And remember this, before circumstances change. Okay? The peace that we're looking for is in the moment. Remember, sit in the tension, right? It's from that place that we can experience peace, that peace can guard our hearts. And it happens most oftentimes, I think, before circumstances actually change. And this makes room for forgiveness, okay? To grow, to be nurtured, and for us, keeps us from being strangled by whatever it is we're feeling, or most oftentimes fear is what it comes down to, right? Anxiety, keep going lower, oftentimes it's fear, scared of something, okay? Any questions or comments about that? Hmm. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And I like to go back to something Chuck said earlier. It's like, do we really entrust ourselves to this? And I would say, adding to that is, yeah. And why would I entrust myself to this? And a part of that is because I'm called to be like him. And I want to be like him. Right? And right now, I'm struggling to understand even how he could say, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Like, oh. Standing face to face with Peter, who betrayed him, right? And being able to say, hey, you love me? Like literally being in it, hey, you love me? And pursuing him, but also inviting him, calling him along. You love me? You love me? Right? Like, that's who I want to be.
The 2 words, prayer and supplication, are about relationship and being specific. It's also about posture.
Mm-hmm.
The Roman citizens of Philippi were used to gods who were far off, and they had to play
Yeah.
they maybe never looked at them, or they might die.
Right.
And so, when he talks about prostration of the heart and the mind, there is a very difficult thing for a human being to do anyway. You know, in my 5-year-old mind, I vow before no man except my mom, and that's because she's got a switch. So here is this choice. When you make a choice, it begins to rule out extraneous emotions. I've done this.
Mm-hmm.
But then be specific. What you said a while ago was so full. Whatever we say to the Almighty in prayer, it becomes not just a revelation of Him,
Mm-hmm.
but a binding between us on the matter at hand
Mm-hmm.
in specific terms, as I understand.
Yeah.
Very plain. Very plain. The old saying used to be, name the demon. Of course, that's a different culture. But here we name sin. We name the person having a problem with. We name whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And be very specific.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, then that wholeness of the scene that surpasses our ability to have it scheduled puts us in a position for God to finally say, now something different.
Yeah. You know, you bring something up there that's important to, and it's powerful. Think about the people to whom Paul is writing in their, how they were formed and shaped to think about God or the gods, right? They're not accessible, and they're not out for you, right? They're against you. And anytime in the stories a God visits people, it's typically not the best outcome, right? And it is a very selfish outcome. So there's a certain perspective and approach that Paul is addressing here that is available, which would have been, look, talk about subvert the norm, talk about undercut and, do something in such a way that it just violates all expectations, right? Like, he's for you, right? And this is the kind of relationship that he wants with you. And it's not just about because he's some narcissist that wants all this attention, but there's something very valuable and powerful and healing and restorative for you, right? For you. So good. Anybody else?
One follow-up. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No.
Well, I had a teacher at school many years ago. This piece of God, which protects us, sort of. He said that the root of the verbs there has to do with someone on guard. These people,
Mm-hmm.
they were enfranchised. They were actually Roman citizens. And so Paul uses these
Yeah.
touch points with them to say, you understand it this way,
Mm-hmm.
holy, holy, and the Spirit holy. The Almighty God who raised Jesus from the dead is doing the same thing that we have no knowledge.
Yeah. That's good. Go ahead, Chris.
I often say that, we forget that, like, those valves, pop up and they get tested. And I forget that at one point I committed to those things. So the same thing with when you're with Christ. At one point, everything that's going on around us, we sort of ask for it in our vows and in our marriage.
Mm.
And now these words that we once said when everything was okay, everything was going fine, they find us and they test us to see if we really have merit behind what we were saying at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Just like in my marriage with my vows and my commitments that I made, some of them I missed, some of them I didn't, hold that standard that I was supposed to. And I think that sometimes when we find ourselves in these situations, we, at one point or another, whether it's mind, thinking, or heart, or verbally, we actually ask for these things.
Mm.
We said, hey, Christ, I want to be like you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be, that you are, whatever.
Yeah.
And now these words have come back and found us and said, well, there you go. Your word is being tested now. So
Yeah.
I think in some ways,
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of, like, we signed up for this. What did we sign up for? And I was thinking about it as you guys were talking. If I sat down with my wife and she asked me some questions or wanted to know what was going on inside of me, or what was happening, why the frustrations, or whatever, would she accept you as a spouse, husbands, wives, friends, anybody? Would you accept from your kids? It doesn't matter who it is. Would you accept generalities? No, you wouldn't, would you? You keep asking questions, and you probably get a little frustrated whenever they weren't telling you, because it's obvious that they're holding back something, right? Like, I want to know. Why do we do that? Because we want to engage in this, because it's a relationship. We want to engage in that relationship in such a way where there is an intimacy, and we want them to know that there's trust, and that we want to walk with them, and that we're there. We're here for it, right? Let's apply that to our relationship with the Lord. I mean, so oftentimes it's just kind of ethereal, kind of over here thing, when the reality is it's meant to be experiential, specific. Like, why would we approach our relationship with the Lord any differently? See what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Okay, somebody read Romans chapter 12, the whole thing. No, verse 2. The whole chapter is amazing. I absolutely love it. But verse 2. So renew the mind. I know there's a context there, and I absolutely love the context, but let's pull this out. Renew the mind daily to discern God's will, right? Be transformed in the Greek here is a present passive imperative. Present imperative is ongoing. It's a habitual action that's happening here. There's some great things happening here. I don't want to get in the weeds with this, but think about this. How is this passage helpful in light of this scenario? Renewing the mind daily, renovating the mind.
Well, I think the big point is not following the pattern of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just saying, this is contrasting God's way, not the pattern of the world.
Okay.
The pattern of the world is that you can hold my breath,
Okay.
win, as opposed to God's better way.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Taking out the old to put in the new. Fresher, better, right?
We have a little hard saying with Jesus. If your eye offends you, pluck it out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I still got another eye, so that I can still see stuff,
Yeah.
If your hand offends you, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's this relationship such that if God wants to completely tear out a part of my life because it's hurting me and everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
I have to partner with Him to allow Him to do that.
Yeah.
The
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like we get into these modes where we replay, as it were, automatically old scripts, right? I can't trust them. If I forgive, I lose, whatever. Justice is my responsibility, and I can't stand it when someone gets one on over me, and that can't happen here, right? Or I want to win, I'm going to come out on top, and this is what, right? Old scripts, over and over and over again, okay? And that's part of what happens. Notice, every now and then, some memory, something would show up, right? But he would do things to not give it any attention, and eventually, and it just organically, this is what happens. We fall back into old ways of doing things, right? Old patterns, right? Okay, what else? How else is this helpful? Mm-hmm. Yes. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, that's good. That's good, right? Because where you are, there you are, right? And and that's the thing. We're wired to remember these things. Like, that's the reality. We are wired to remember those things. And I think it's because we can learn things from them. The question is, what's my response going to be to that? That's important. What's my response going to be to that, right? Okay, what else? Okay, renewal. Let's think about renewal, okay? Without renewal, forgiveness, and I'm using this very loosely because it's not actual forgiveness, but forgiveness, I think, can become a momentary effort, okay? You ever done that? Well, I forgive you, and it comes back up, and you bring it back up, and you kind of hold it over them a little bit, right? Anybody? Right? You want it to be a sustained posture, okay? That's what's important. It's ongoing. It's intentional. When our mind keeps turning to it and is controlled by old narratives, right? Controlled by old narratives. It can stall growth, okay? Forgiveness takes root, though. And that's the point. Like, it has to take root when the mind is daily reformed. We give it the attention. We're not running from it. In fact, by running from it, you realize that I didn't wire us. I didn't create us. It's not my fault. But by running from it, we literally, neurologically, it's scientifically proven, we make it worse. So think about that. We make it worse by running from it or trying to avoid it, okay? So forgiveness takes root when the mind is daily reformed, not when feelings magically change, okay? Pay attention to that. Matthew chapter 6, verses 14 through 15. Forgiveness, forgiving others is linked to receiving God's mercy. We're going to pick up right here next week because I want to cover this, okay? Because we have a way of looking at this that I don't think is helpful, and I want to try to help maybe give you a different perspective here. But somebody read this. Matthew chapter 6, verses 14 and 15.
Forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins.
Okay? What's this an invitation to? And there's a whole context to this. It's called the Sermon on the Mount. You might have heard of it. What's this an invitation to? Okay? Okay? What's this an invitation to? Somebody read Matthew chapter 5, verse 48. We got 1 minute left. And we're going to pick up right here next week, and I'm excited. Come on. Perfect. What does that word perfect mean? Complete. Not perfection the way we think. Complete. Whole. Right? You might use the word righteous. Things being as they ought to be. There's lots of different words we can kind of tag into this. This is an invitation to what? To be like God. We have a tendency of looking at this as a transactional thing. I think we're missing it here. Okay? I think we're missing it here. It's a little deeper, a little more. I want to talk about this. But failing to engage in the process of forgiveness is not like God. So you might call it a sin. Okay? It is missing the mark, straying off of the path of the way that we are designed to function, how God would have us function, right? And so it's not becoming like who? When we fail to engage in that direction, that process, we're failing to do the things that help us become like Father. How? Yeah. Okay? That's the other thing. Like, as dearly beloved, Paul says, children of God. Like, in other words, that's a posture. That's a place from which I live, knowing that I'm a child of God and I'm beloved. And that right there is the step that you lead off of, right? We're going to